I was working on a project in the early 90s with, I guess, what you would call the first generation Digidesign digital audio workstation. It somehow just seemed a reasonable thing a year or two ago to try to restore this work. The audio files have been stored on a hard disk, a 5.25-inch hard disk. Digidesign, for any number of reasons, decided they would make a backup utility called Data, D-A-T-A, which would allow backup storage on 4mm DAT tapes using an audio type of DAT device. When it was then discovered that all the audio files were not on any hard drive anywhere, then I discovered what I really had was 4 or 5 DAT tapes with this magnetic tape backup system. And it's like looking for, your wallet on a sunken ship in the Mediterranean or something like that. I don't know that the following documentation will be interesting to anybody. If you're trying to resurrect such a files from the era, maybe it'll be useful if you just step back and say, well, the first thing you had to do was resurrect a computer from the 90s. Oh my God, what a crazy thing to try to do. So there are a lot of details with regard to resurrecting a machine that will run the Digi-Dat tape backup utility in the first place. I was able to do this with OS 9.2. It was sort of surprising to me that I even got that far. This is a Quicksilver single processor machine that we just had lying around that will run Pro Tools 5.1. Actually, it runs Pro Tools 3.4 free, but 5.1 actually was somewhere or another was useful in this process. We found a D24 card, which was, I think, made after the DAT backup utility was abandoned, and you have to have a legacy farm. We're using that with a couple of 24-bit 888s, but the only way to select which slot you're using for the backup utility is through the farm card. I don't remember that being the case, but back when this was all new bus, I can't remember. Anyway, to my astonishment, the slave 888 and the farm card with the AES input will talk to the DAT machine. Another challenge is finding a DAT machine that will work. Luckily, I had a machine, and the real-time error display is actually fairly low. I did bake this tape, I guess. It's playing at the moment. And you can follow the rules for baking DAT tapes that are all over the internet if you have to get to that. that department of the insanity. Now, I guess I'll show a little bit of the DAT utility situation. You've got to find all these pieces of the software, of course. So within that, you do have all the utilities, including, where is it? Data 3.1. That's what I was using. 2.4 is probably, or 2 was probably what was used in the beginning, if not 1. However, couldn't find earlier copies until I was already in the process and 3 was working. 2 did not work for some reason under OS 9, which I guess isn't a surprise. Also, there's a whole aspect of this that some of my audio files from DAT tape became headerless, which was a whole nother nightmare. Luckily, SoundHack can fix that, or if you're smarter, ResEdit or some similar resource fork editing program. So, as a quick recap of how this data utility works, the data utility via the AS port through your slave interface, through the farm card, while having the data utility launched. In this case, we're storing an individual file on the DAT tape as a header, describing the file, the resource fork information, data fork information, that is what it's doing right now, the sound data as Digidesign is calling it, and then a trailer to tell you that there's nothing else to follow. Normally it would be playing from the DAT tape, but because I had to fool around with a corrupt resource fork, I'm playing that with another Pro Tools rig after having altered the resource fork. Actually, just all I did really was skip it. It's laundered through the DAT machine into the slave interface. And now it's doing its thing. And we're about to wrap it up. It will see the trailer. Now it's waiting for the trailer. I may have to actually manually go play the trailer, because without the resource fork, it thinks the trailer is a piece of audio. Hold on a second. Okay, so stop the playback on this thing. Go over to the trailer. The trailer is right there. I'm gonna play it, and then this thing over there, it's pretty far away, should see the trailer, and then say, you've successfully restored the file. So, these are the kind of crazy games that are being played to resurrect the dead. Now, of course, I happen to know that because the resource fork is screwed up on this backup, that I'm not going to be able to play this file without fixing the header. I'll open that and it will say this: there is a headerless file, it's screwed up, it's not going to play, etc. So luckily, Tom here made this utility. We should give him credit where credit is due. So here is the file. It's 40, the actual file is 48, so this is a default. See, it says headerless data. So we go up to change the header here. You can do this in other ways. So the first thing I want to do is tell it that it's actually 48 and that it's a 16-bit linear file. It happens to be one channel. I'll apply that and save it, and then of course it doesn't do anything until you save it. So let's save it here. It's just going to call it a copy. I prefer that it be the same old-fashioned file format, and we'll save it. So now it's saving a copy with the repaired header. So one more detail about this. I'm going to do another reel now. This is a redigitization of the DAT backup tape itself, something you would never do ordinarily. You would never duplicate what was on the data tapes, of course. You would just try to restore them, and that would be that. Here's the header. Interestingly, it looks like that. I did have trouble with this. If you're going to duplicate what's on the DAT tape in order to screw around with it, you have to duplicate this stuff in stereo. So that's the header. This is the resource fork. Probably just due to some error I made in 1994 or something. When you run this from the DAT tape, or if you run this here duplication, it records about, I don't know, 7/8 of this resource fork, thinks it's audio, and then cuts off the end and then cancel out when it hits this trailer. So what I've been doing, and I'll try to show you here, is playing the header here, and then as soon as you see the data recovery dialog over there, it's waiting for a header now. If I push play here, it's going to hit this header. It's going to then switch over to expecting the resource fork to start. Then it's going to, because the resource fork on all three of these reels has been corrupt, and immediately start thinking that audio starts. Okay, so we'll start here. That's pretty far away, but you're going to see it switch to expect the resource fork. Right there. And then see, it thinks the resource fork is very quick. I'm going to skip from here then over to here and start what I care about. And now over there, as you saw before, it's beginning to record the actual data fork. Hopefully all the way to the end. I assume a smarter person would be able to go into the resource fork and fix it. But I'm not that smart.